Welcome to Our Scars Speak. My name is Christina Miner. I am the host of this podcast. And before we begin, I like to give a disclaimer that we are not claiming to be anybody's medical professionals or mental health professionals or providing any type of advice or suggestions for your treatment plan. We advise you and encourage you to definitely stick to the treatment plan that you have in place. You are definitely listening at your own discretion, and we're just merely here for support and to give some education and also to share our stories, all of our stories. So tonight, without further ado, we have Carolyn Plank, who is here with us. I'm so excited to have you. I thank you for coming on. I met her through IG. I don't even know how I met you, but I met you through IG. I do know that much. And I've just followed you and fell in love with your entire platform. It's so creative and you're just so friendly. And that's what really struck out to me. So thank you for being on Our Scars Speak tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on.
Oh, thanks. So getting right into it, Caroline Plank, I would like to know, can you just explain to the audience who you are without all the, wonderful titles that we may have, which I don't mind if you include them as well, but just a little bit about who you are and how you describe yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I am a medical speech pathologist by trade. I'm also a holistic health coach. I'm also a certified run coach. I'm an avid runner that's taken 3 years almost off of running, and I'm just getting back into it. I'm an animal lover. I have 3 dogs. So it's busy. We live in Brooklyn, which is like unheard of. People think I'm a dog walker when I take my dogs out, which I am, but not by profession. And I have a wonderful husband, who is a filmmaker, producer, editor. He's also the person that made my documentary.
Yes, and that documentary was beautiful. It is so nice. And yeah, so that explains a lot with how your wonderful videos and stuff are right now and everything.
I do them by myself.
Oh, you do?
I do them by myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. And I was just looking at like your whole entire background, like how you set up tonight just looks
He
so
set this
beautiful
up.
here.
Okay, I will
Yeah,
give him credit. He set this up, but I do most of my videos
that is awesome.
by myself. I'm very proud of myself. I've
Yeah.
a
No,
lot.
that's good because you have very creative platform. Very creative.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate it. It
I'm
does
like,
take a
God,
lot of thought.
a lot of thought and a lot of time. I'm like, gracious.
It does. It really does. I'm like, how do I tap into my creative part of my brain?
Absolutely, because it takes because I'm not very creative on that end. I'm more analytical. So
Mhm.
to like do that, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta really think this through because I have no creativity sometimes. But thank you for explaining yourself and who you are and what you do. And I just love everything that you're doing. And I would like to kind of get into the part of just starting out with what was life because your story's different. So I want you to just share before any of a potential breast cancer or any of that popped up into your life. What was life like before? And maybe a little
Mm,
bit about your family history, because you do have a pretty, detailed,
yeah.
very different situation.
Yeah. So, I mean, Christine, I honestly don't remember life before cancer.
Right.
Um, my it kind of all weaves into it. When I was 2, my grandpa had pancreatic cancer. So he was the one who had the BRCA2 gene. Obviously, we didn't know that he had it.
Okay.
Um, so my only memories of him is going to visit him when he was getting chemo. And I'm surprised I even remember that, but that's my only memory of him.
Mm.
He passed away when I was around 2, 3. And then my grandmother passed away from lung cancer. And then my mom, when I was 9, 10 years old, was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer.
Wow.
And then after that, her brother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was during that time when he was going through chemo. He
Mhm.
was a radiologist, and he was kind of like, there's this new genetic mutation that they kind of discovered. This was a long time ago.
Mhm.
And that they found, and it makes you higher risk for breast and ovarian cancer. And that's all kind of they knew at that time. And we should get tested for it. And so he got tested for it first and he was positive. And then my mom and her sister and her brother also got tested for it. And so my mom was positive. My aunt was also positive, and that's actually how they found her breast cancer from
Okay.
that um test. So then once my mom was positive, they were kind of I have 12 first cousins just on that side. I have 24 first cousins. But that's another story. So I after after my mom was positive, I was like, "Oh, I'll be the first one to get tested. I probably don't have it. I don't know like why I thought that, but I was
Mhm.
like, I don't have it." So I got tested and I found out that I had the genetic mutation like a few days before my 21st birthday.
Wow.
And yeah, and I had always had like cystic breasts and when you come from so much cancer in your family, you're kind of like on alert all the time for everything.
Mhm.
So I was always kind of like feeling around. I was like, I don't know, like, these lumps and bumps, these cysts don't feel great. But once I got tested, my gynecologist said that, your whole healthcare is really going to change. And and I didn't really understand what that meant. And, but then eventually, I had to go for mammograms every 6 months and alternate with ultrasounds. And I wasn't like the most compliant. People in the medical field are kind of like less compliant than the normal public, but I did go when I felt like I needed to go. So fast forward to when I was 28, my uncle had just passed away. I felt a lump on the right side, and I went to go see my gynecologist, and she was on vacation, and I saw this other guy, and he was like, I don't think you need anything,
Mm.
but we can do it just in case if it makes you feel better. And I was like, all right. And my mom, thank God, obviously, my mom survived stage 4 ovarian. She was with me
Oh,
and she said, no, you need to go get a mammogram. So we went and got a mammogram and then an ultrasound. And the radiologist said, I see something, but I'm not really concerned about it. But if it makes you feel better, I can refer you out to a surgeon and an oncologist.
mm.
So we did that. And I had my first MRI. I should have had it before then, but I had my first MRI on my breast. And the lump that I felt wasn't the lump that was an issue. I had another lump on the left side, and it was a precancerous mass. So
Okay.
I had a biopsy and MRI guided biopsy, which is
Oh.
awful. You don't
All of
realize.
the biopsies are terrible. But yeah.
Yeah, they're all bad. But the MRI guided is so long, and I was hanging
Oh.
for it. Yeah, it was so long because they take pictures before, they take pictures
Oh
during,
yeah.
and then they take pictures after, and you're hanging there. I was just like, I did not know what I was in for.
Oh, so they didn't even kind of prep you for what you were getting
They
ready to
like
do?
said, oh, they kind of said like that. They were like,
Right.
oh, you're gonna take pictures before, during, and after, but it was much more involved than that, and
Mm. Hmm.
and very long. Wasn't expecting it to be so long. Um, so then, the doctor was like, we can do a lumpectomy or we can do a bilateral mastectomy to prevent it, from both sides kind of being an issue.
Right.
So I am the type of person that's like all in, and I was like, let's just do it and get it over with because I don't want to have to like worry about this anymore,
Right.
which is a naive way to think, but it's, you know, what I was thinking at the time.
Mhm.
It's a very hard decision to make, a very hard decision. It wasn't easy by any means. So when I was in surgery, they also found like some suspicious looking lymph nodes. They took those out on the left side as well.
Oh, wow.
But I'm okay. I was okay for
Okay.
2 years and
Mm.
until I got breast implant illness in 2019, which
And
was
just the joys of that is
yeah.
just figure of speech. But yeah. So this started when you were 28?
Yeah. Yeah. I started with mammograms when I was 21.
Right, but the 28 was when
Yeah.
the suspicious lump, and then the other lump was the one that actually had the precancer.
Hmm.
So was it DCIS or was it the atypical was it the hyperplasia?
I think it was the hyperplasia. I've kind of like put it out of my brain at this
Okay.
point, Christina. I'm like,
No.
whatever. And yeah.
Okay. So you have that done. You get the wonderful this biopsy, which yes, you're right, because all of them you have to go back and forth to, I know for mine it was like the mammogram, the biopsy, mammogram. It was like back and forth all day.
Yeah.
Just replacement to see where if the clips were in right. And it's a long process. I can't even imagine with the MRI because I didn't have the MRI part. I just had the
Yeah.
ultrasound and the mammogram. So then you get the double mastectomy. So the
Hmm.
double mastectomy was going great. Did the breast implant illness start immediately, or
No.
was it like a fine and then it was a gradual process of various symptoms?
So yeah, so I was fine. And like I said, I like to do things let's just do it, get it over
Right.
with. So I was like, I'm gonna go straight to implant. I'm gonna do one surgery, I'm gonna be done. And then I'll be finished. And it wasn't. So it was 2 years later. So I had my surgery in 2016, and then it was like the beginning of December in 2018, and I was laying face down on the couch, and I sat up, and I was like, "Oh, I kind of got a pain." And I was talking to my husband. He was like, "Oh, you
Mhm.
probably pulled something like working out," which like could have been. I'm still getting used to my like new body.
Right.
So I was like, maybe. And then I like a week later, I looked in the mirror and it was filling up. It was like getting higher up on my chest. So I was like, this doesn't look right. And so I sent a picture to my plastic surgeon. I think that was like a few days. I actually it was a few weeks later, but she said, come in the day after Christmas, first thing in the morning. And so I did because she thought I had ruptured the implant,
Mhm.
but I didn't. I just started filling up with fluid. And they found a moderate amount of peri-implant fluid forming over my implants. And so she sent me to get it drained. I had it drained like 3 times. And altogether, I think they took a pint of fluid out of my breast. And then it started to come over onto the right side, which is like unheard of. And also if this middle part kind of detaches, it's
Right.
impossible, very difficult to reattach it. So I was in so much pain, so much pain. And she said, let's hospitalize you and see if you have an infection. So I was
Mhm.
on IV antibiotics for like 4 days. And it wasn't an infection. I didn't have any symptoms of infection. She thought it was like an atypical presentation.
Okay.
So, so then they were like, it's not that. We're gonna have to do surgery and open you up and see what we can find. So they opened me up and I had just a ton of scar tissue on the left side. They
Mhm.
found that the scar tissue was wrapped around a nerve on the left side. Um, and they did a tire rotation. I still have implants. I don't love it, but I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do as far as reconstruction at this time. So
Wow.
yeah, I think something else happened with that whole situation. And I just have an extreme amount of scar tissue in my flanks, and I have been developing really dangerous blood clots. They're also called deep vein thrombosis, which can break off and they can go to your lungs or they can go to your brain and obviously, be really detrimental.
Right. So with okay, so what were your breast implant symptoms? Because to me, and I'm no doctor, but based off what you're just saying, it sounds like capsular contractor. And the only reason why I know
I
that
had that
is I
too.
had that as well.
I had that
Okay.
too. I have it right now. I have
Right.
it again. It's back. But that wasn't the main issue. They were saying that they toyed with the idea that I had the beginnings of the lymphoma caused by breast implants, and that the fluid was just, I had T cells, but it didn't show malignancies. But they were saying that it might have been too early to show. So, but anyway, my symptoms were that it was mainly just fluid coming up my chest, and I
Okay.
felt as if my breast was going to explode. Just
Hmm.
like sitting forward, I felt like I felt like everything was going to fall out of my chest. And I
Hmm.
kind of had to like lay back a lot. I missed a lot of work. I was kind of, I usually see patients on the floor, and I was
Hmm.
doing a lot of paperwork then and office work. So it was just really painful. It was really painful.
So the fluid, because I had that same, it's probably the same thing. I'm thinking because we both had breast implant illness and capsular contractor. But I thought that was associated with the capsular contractor because of the tightening. But I remember laying down, and every time I moved, I could hear the swishing of
Mm,
fluid in my chest. And I thought I was going crazy. And I'm like, am I going crazy? But I also lost layers of skin. So I don't know if it was coming from the expander fluid or fluid
mm.
built up around. But that's interesting that you said that because it very much so reminds me of some of the stuff that I had gone through with breast implant illness, but and then I had a ton of other symptoms. So those were the only symptoms, and it just led you back to the doctor. So now you're kind of like at a point where it's like, I don't know what I want to do or if I want to do reconstruction. And you still have implants right now. You said they
Yeah.
just swapped them.
Yes, they just swapped them. Yeah. I mean, she said that my capsular contracture wasn't as like that bad, and it shouldn't have caused that fluid. So, I don't know. I
Yeah.
really don't know. I was like desperate for answers. I was feeling really lost and confused. And I had reached out to, the people that I had known, and they were all kind of like that had gone through, mastectomy and reconstruction. And they're like, I've never heard of that. Um, and then even my plastic surgeon said that, she did peer to peers with other physicians, and they
Mhm.
were like, sometimes you just get that weird one who has
Oh,
complications. I was like, that makes me feel good.
yeah. Yeah. And that's sad because I know for me, I was looking up the information. I was like, oh my God, because you see online where it says like a lot of doctors don't believe really in the breast implant illness and stuff. And so I was like, what do they think we're walking around here with it in our head that we're just making it up? Because
Right.
especially when you really wanted the implants and wanted the reconstruction, I doubt if you're just making up stuff. So I had gone
Right.
back. Yeah, I asked my doctor, I said, you think I'm crazy? She's like, no. She's like, do you have the typical signs of it? So I think finding that doctor that you feel comfortable with that can, not make you feel like, oh, you get that one. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it'll make you
I'm
help make
I
more better other decisions for yourself.
I loved my plastic surgeon. I thought she was really nice, and
Mhm.
she did really hear me, but she also didn't believe in breast implant illness. And I was
Right.
like, I mean, I don't know what this is. I don't know. I was like, then what
Hmm.
is it? And she was like, well, people get silicone implants in their knees and their hips, and they don't have stuff like this happen. But I will say that when this happened, it was like right around when this was happening to me, that breast implants got a black box warning, which means that they can cause death.
Yeah.
So I
When
was
did,
like,
okay, so what year was that, if you don't mind me asking?
I think that was like 2019 because I
Okay.
was dealing with this from the end of 2018 into 2019, and right around then they got a
Okay.
black box warning, and I was like, I guess I was right.
Yeah, because they weren't supposed to, honestly, I don't know if did you get a pamphlet when you got your implants with the
No,
warnings and all that? Huh?
no,
Yeah,
no.
you were supposed to. So that's something else that some of the doctor's offices weren't doing. They were supposed to have you supposed to get a pamphlet about your implants.
When did
And
you get yours?
I got mine. I never made it to implants. I had expanders.
Oh, it was just the
It was the
expanders.
expanders and COVID hit, so I wasn't able to get the exchange. Had I
Oh,
got the exchange, it probably would have prolonged, my symptoms or whatever. So I'm thankful I didn't. So when I got the expanders, I immediately, like, I woke up from the double mastectomy not feeling right, but I have a chest open, so I didn't think nothing of that. It was just as time progressed and I had all these array of symptoms that I didn't have before surgery. And then I told her, and she was like, yes, you have breast implant illness and
Yeah.
capsular contractor, but you're supposed to get, like, I know with the expander, I got a card with
I got a
information.
card. I got a
Yeah.
card,
And I
but
did
I
get
didn't get, but
information from the
they,
doctor.
yeah, they didn't come out with the black box warning. They had it in like I think it was 2019.
Because I know before around that, maybe a little bit before that time, it was a lot of controversy about the texturized, because my doctor, I
Right.
was 20, what year did I have my surgery? It was 2020, the beginning of 2020. And she said she didn't do texturized implants because they had a recall on them for cancer and all this kind of stuff. So what the gummies was what I had,
Mm.
and supposedly been the safest one, but and it either way, my body just rejected it just as
Mm.
well as yours did. But we're supposed to receive a pamphlet. So there's organizations now that are pressing doctors to make for sure that patients are signing information stating that they know the risk of having implants.
That's a great idea. I
Yeah.
was like, all
You
these
did,
people from the 90s got all these implants. I guess I'll be,
yeah. 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 Because a lot of them,
or getting them out.
yeah, and they had cancer. They had a
Hmm.
secondary cancer. So that is something. Now, what really also amazed me about your story too was the blood clots that you were talking about.
Mm.
And do they know what exactly has caused this?
So, I switched to Sloan Kettering from where I was before, and I'm seeing a new plastic surgeon now who also deals with um lymph node transfer and stuff like that. And he even said to me, he goes, I kind of want to study your case because I've never seen this before. Um, another, like I'm just like, oh, good, I get to continue to be the anomaly. Um, so I went to go see a radiologist at Sloan Kettering, and she did a dynamic ultrasound. So what you do is you put your arm in three different positions for like a few minutes at a time,
Mhm.
and then they track your blood flow.
Mhm.
So my right side, I had 1 out of 3 positions completely stopped the blood flow. And then on the left side, 2 out of 3 positions completely stopped. And they're like normal positions. They're out, up, and then back.
Right.
Um, so I said to her, I was like, in your career, and mind you, she is the only radiologist at Sloan that does these dynamic ultrasounds. I said,
Mhm.
have you ever seen anyone who didn't have chemo or radiation have blood clots and blood flow issues like this? And she said, no, I've never seen that.
Wow.
So, I have a lot of nerve pain on the left side. Um, I guess it's from the fluid building up um and pulling on the nerves and damaging them. I'm not really sure like what went on in there.
Wow.
But like I said, I spoke with this new plastic surgeon, and the plan is to eventually open me back up. And what they do is they kind of cut off the ends of the nerve, and then they wrap them in tissue and then burrow them in muscle, because sometimes when they try to grow back, it's like a frayed wire. So
Yeah.
it's kind of goes nuts. But even like a hug, if someone comes around and hugs my left flank
Mhm.
and puts their hands on it, like even a little
Right.
bit, I'm like,
Mhm.
and it's not normal. After I run, if I try to use the muscle on this side, any muscles on this side, pulling something, pushing something, it's like tons of needles just like poking underneath my armpit and on my side. It's so painful, and it's no way to live. So, I was
Right.
on Lovenox injections, which are awful. I did
Mm.
not realize how painful they are. And apparently they're not painful for everybody. If you have a certain pH, they burn. Um,
Oh, that's
yeah.
good to know. Yeah.
So I was doing Lovenox injections from February until June of 2023 for the blood clot on the left side. But
Wow.
yeah.
So they gave you the blood thinners to
Mhm.
try to, so
Yeah.
with the blood clots, what were some of the symptoms? Were there any other different types of symptoms you were having that you may want to share with people?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I said, I'm an anomaly.
Uh-huh.
Um, don't swell and I don't bruise easily at all.
Okay.
So noticing them was really hard. The right side, it felt like a tourniquet was around my arm. It felt like somebody was just holding a tourniquet so tight around my arm. It didn't feel like I had any blood flow. Um, which is, you know how it feels to have a tourniquet around your arm when they
Right.
take blood. And imagine that being on for like hours and hours and hours all day. And that's how it felt. The left side was asymptomatic. I didn't have any idea that I had it. I went to go see the physiatrist at Sloan, and she was, she had me reach out my arms side to side, and she was testing the pulse on each side. And she was like, "Your left side is low flow. I want you to go get a Doppler." And that's how we got it. So, when I did the ultrasound, the dynamic ultrasound, they said that, the right side had low flow, and they said I very well may have had other DVTs I had no idea I had. But typically they swell. Typically you have
Okay.
swelling.
And usually it's hot to touch too. Like it's hot.
Yeah. It can be warm and it can be swollen, or it can be asymptomatic, which is really
Yeah.
hard. And
That's the
it's
scary.
also, yeah, it's so scary. I was like, oh my God. And so
Yeah.
now I'm like, every time I feel kind of like
Mhm.
congested in my arm, I'm like, do I have it or is it like a muscle being crampy? That's also another thing, muscle cramping. Like you might feel like you have a knot in your shoulder or
Mhm.
something like that. That's another symptom, but it was so vague for me. Um, the left side, I don't know. I had an intuitive hit and I literally I have my PCP's number. I texted her.
Mhm.
I said, I think I have a blood clot in my arm. And she was like, "You're crazy. You don't have any of the indicators for a blood clot. You're not on birth control. You don't have any like
Right.
genetic factors." I was like, "I don't care. I have a blood clot in my arm. I need to come to the emergency room." And she was like, "Come to me first." So I went to go see her and she was like, "I think it's muscular." And I said, "No, I still want a Doppler." Um, and
Right.
that's another important thing. Like my mom was also with me for that one too. So it's always important to hopefully, she's not in the medical field, but she will
Right.
be mama bear if I need her to be. So it's always
Mhm.
good to have a medical advocate with you when you're feeling kind of vulnerable and not heard. So
Wow. So
she
you
helped
advocated for yourself to get a Doppler, and that's how they
both
found.
of us did. Yeah. And
That's
then,
amazing.
yeah. And then they didn't find it right away. And the ultrasound tech was kind of like, I don't see anything. And then we were like, get the doctor. So the radiologist came in and found it.
Really. And that was all because of the tightness in your arm.
Yep. Yeah.
So you didn't have, and because all of them were in the arm area, correct?
Yeah, they're in my atrial or my ventricular. Where is it? I don't remember right now, Christine.
Mhm. That's fine.
But it's usually here.
Okay.
It's in my arterial artery, I think. I think
Okay.
that's where it is. But yeah, they're usually kind of like in my bicep area.
And
Let me check.
so, but for now, as far as you know, you don't have any more. Okay. I was like,
Because
yeah,
also weightlifting, exercising also ironically puts me at risk because I have to do like when I exercise, you kind of hold positions or you do
right.
repetitive positions, and that can also increase your risk. But I'm also kind of like, I'm young. I'm not going to not work out. So I'm going to just do what I need to do.
And that's the part that is so like mind blow. First of all, first thing, you said something that was very important about the fact that you hadn't been, you didn't have chemo, you didn't have radiation, and for you to be young and then have this. Because a lot of people do not realize that chemo and radiation can put you in a higher risk for cardiovascular issues. Um, and that's sad that a lot of doctors aren't sharing. And I get it. Some of them probably just don't want to scare people from taking treatment. But at the end of the day, we still need to know what to be aware of
Oh, yeah.
dealing with our health. But I'm glad you brought that up because that is an important factor that even if you do not have any type of cardiovascular issues, and then you didn't go through chemo or radiation, you still could have some, because at the overall, surgeries are a risk factor, period, to give you a blood clot anyway. So, but a lot of people don't know that either. So
Right.
thank you for sharing that information.
Right. Yeah. And always listen to your body.
Yeah,
Listen to your body's cues. I don't know. I got a download in my brain. I don't know if it was my guardian angel, but I was just like, I have a blood clot. And everyone was kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, no, it
right.
doesn't run in our family, but we found out it does on my dad's side. Um, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So, but I don't have a genetic factor to it.
oh,
But my aunt does. And so I don't know. I
yeah.
don't know.
And it's good that from the very beginning, like you knew your the whole part about your whole entire story is fascinating, but the part that you knew your family history and you
Mhm.
knew what to look for, because a lot of people would have just had those cysts and been like, this is probably just another cyst and why
Mm,
continue to, go back and get more testing or what have you. But because you knew that, you kept on advocating for yourself, regardless of what anyone stated. And then the blood clot issue is just a whole nother story within itself that you could have just said, you know what, I'm just going to take their word for it. But because you demanded it, they actually found it and
yeah.
you were able to get treated properly for it. So that's
Yeah.
amazing that you
Yeah.
persevere, like, especially being young, because sometimes, young, older, or whatever, you get tired of always going back and forth to the doctor.
Oh, trust me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
giving you the abbreviated version, but the breast surgeon that I had before, I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of different things that have happened in my
Right.
journey, but the breast surgeon that I had before was kind of telling me that it was all in my head, that I was filling up with fluid. And also because of this scar tissue, I now have lymphedema. And I had to go and have a lymphoscintigraphy, and it showed that I have lymphedema. And my breast surgeon, my old one, was
Mhm.
like, you don't have lymphedema. You're too thin and young, and you're a vegan, and you run. So you don't have lymphedema. And I didn't take out any lymph nodes. And I was like, well, you did. And my plastic surgeon sent me for a lymphoscintigraphy. And she goes, I don't need to look at it. You don't have it. Can you imagine? And I'm kind of
Wow.
thinking, like, if I can't be heard, like, I'm a medical professional, and if I can't be heard, who's going to be heard?
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know. And it's a bummer, but I don't go to her anymore.
That
And
is, that makes me angry
it makes me angry
because,
too.
yeah, it really does. Because, like you stated, for some people, they have no medical knowledge of anything.
Right.
Not that, a lot of us just don't go to medical school, or a lot of us, we just don't have that interaction with the medical field. Maybe you've never been to the doctor before because
Right.
you've been completely healthy. And then you get thrown into something and you don't, even though you understand what they're saying, you could even understand what they're saying and ask questions and they still deny you. And
Mm.
yeah, for you to be someone who understood and still wasn't heard, there's so many voices that aren't being heard.
Right. And it's like, we're in New York City. She's a well-known surgeon, and
Mhm.
she sees celebrities too. And
Mhm.
I'm just like, are you kidding me? And you're another woman, you're a woman too. Like, I'm sure you want to be heard, but it was very dismissive. She told me that I probably had a shoulder issue and I should go see a shoulder surgeon because I exercise. I was just like, okay, I'm done.
Wow. And you said something about exercise that is true too, which is sometimes we have, various issues, medical issues, and it's like, you need to exercise because, it's good for us. But then it's like, if I exercise, I'm putting myself possibly in jeopardy over here. So what do you do in those situations? And that's something that I've been hearing a lot of lately. Like, oh, I found, the doctors found this cardiovascular or whatever, but I still need to walk or I still need to lift weights, like you stated. So, what was their advice about that with you, as far as exercising and everything like that?
Because they don't really understand what's going on. I mean, they told me like do PT, do stretches,
Mhm.
and don't do repetitive movements. Um, but that was kind of it. They weren't really like, avoid anything. I don't have a cardiac issue. It's more of just like a blood flow issue. It's like something's being cut off in here in my outlets. It's kind of like an outlet syndrome,
Mhm.
um, which is from the scar tissue. But yeah, I mean, they didn't really advise me on anything. I know it's different for those of you who are on hormone therapy and
Right.
tamoxifen and all that. It's definitely different and harder, and it affects your heart rate so much, and it makes it kind of go haywire. But they were kind of just like, do what you can, just don't do repetitive movements and stretch.
Oh God. Like, I mean,
So
it's just and I mean, I guess it's not their fault because if they don't know, they don't know. And
yeah,
I can't appreciate that more than you telling me something that you know fully well that you shouldn't be telling me. So it's sort of like
yeah.
a catch 22, I guess, with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life, and I feel like
Right.
at this point I'm kind of in touch with my body, and I kind of know what to look out for. And um, Sloan is now very good about, like, I mean, they always have been, but they're especially good about getting me in for a Doppler like right away. And I feel like I know all the ladies there. All the technicians are like, "You're back." Like, yeah, I think I might
Here
have a
we go
clot.
again.
But yeah, so I kind of just do what I can when I can, and I try to listen to my body as much as possible. That's the main thing. I mean, when I was younger, I think we all did. We kind of just
Oh
like
yeah.
did whatever we wanted and ignored an ache and pain and just kept going. But now I'm realizing like that could actually have a detrimental effect, because if I
Right.
feel a clot and I keep working out, it could potentially break off and cause bigger issues.
Wow. This has been very interesting because I think you're probably the first guest as far as when it comes about blood clots like this. So, and given the fact that you're not on any type of cancer
Nothing.
treatment, it
I'm
came
not
from
on anything.
surgery. And
Mhm.
that is another important factor. Like you did everything that you could as far as a previvor to, well, previvor, but you also had some precancerous
I'm
cells.
like kind of
You're
the
kind of like, yeah, you're kind of like in the middle, but you went in with the intent of,
yeah,
this is, so I won't have to do anything else. Yet
right.
then you have all these other complications.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, I don't know, guys.
Yeah,
That's
it's
why
so
I'm saying
hard.
it's a hard decision to make. I could have just had a lumpectomy, but I was like, I just need to do this now so I can stop worrying and, reduce my risk. And, it is what it is. And I am the type of person that will welcome a challenge. I mean, it
Mhm.
sucks, but I also am like kind of like, what do I have to learn from this? What do I have to
Right.
learn from this? Because it is going to make me wiser, and it is going to help me kind of navigate life better. Um,
Hmm.
like the coolest people you met aren't the ones that skate through life. They're
Right.
the ones that have overcome adversity. So,
And yeah, but I really hope one day that when they go in and tell us about the double mastectomy, instead of just saying, there's infection risk, I think they really need to dive in a little bit deeper about the scar tissue and the breast implant illness because
oh my God,
they don't talk about that.
they
They
don't
do not
at all.
talk about scar tissue at all. I've known lymphedema, and infection and
Mm-hmm.
potential every now and then they may throw in about a blood clot.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, they do not talk about scar tissue or the breast implant illness.
Which is so significant.
Yes.
And it's such a bitch.
Yes.
It's awful. I cannot believe how bad it is.
Yeah. Because now you don't know what's a lump or what's scar tissue. And then you
Right.
don't know if I'm tight because I have some lymphedema, or is it a blood clot, or is it my scar tissue? Like you never
Right.
know because it all kind of feels the same sometimes. So it is
Yeah,
something that should be discussed. And I'm thankful that you're really sharing your
absolutely.
story. Um, I'm so thankful you're sharing your story. So after all of that, now
Mhm.
you're in your now.
Mhm.
So you said that now you've learned and now you can, I mean, you're obviously helping other people through everything that you're doing on Instagram and I'm sure beyond that. But now, what do you feel like after, I'm not gonna say after breast cancer, after anything, but you're now, what is life like for you?
Well, it is helping other people because I feel like my family on my mom's side where we got the BRCA mutation from, we're all kind of like, I can't do anything about this. I can't change my risk at all. And so I'm just gonna like eat whatever I want and not exercise. And I am not about that life. I'm about doing the best I can when I can and not making myself crazy about it and just doing what I can, like I said.
Right.
And I also do think that we have some control in this. And I do think that we can give ourselves the best shot because like we don't have to roll over and die and be like, oh, well, I have the BRCA mutation. I'm definitely gonna get this cancer, that cancer. Of
Right.
course, I worry about it, but that's exactly why I do what I do. So I became a certified holistic health coach. Um, and I help people do things to reduce their risk of developing cancer and educating them in ways that, like certain things can increase your risk and certain
Right.
things can reduce it. Obviously, we can never do 100% prevention, but we can try our best. We can try
Mm-hmm.
our best. It doesn't mean that we just eat, Dunkin' Donuts all day and kind
Right.
of like eat whatever we
Yeah.
want. And there are certain people in my extended family that did that. And I was just kind of like, why wouldn't you give yourself the best shot? And why wouldn't you want to feel kind of like the best you could while
Mm-hmm.
you're going through this? Or potentially go through this. So I feel really passionately about that. I really want to give people as much empowerment as possible. Um, and educate them because there are certain things that like I tell people about stuff and they're like, what? I had no idea. And and I want to give people the tips and tricks about like the medical field. I work with doctors, I work in a hospital and I've been doing it for almost 11 years now. I know I look young, right, Christina?
Yeah, you do. You really do. You look like
Kidding.
you're still in your 20s. I'm like, wow.
God bless you.
You do. Because every time I'm like, gosh, you look like you're still in her 20s.
Those are the days, right? But no, I'm in my mid 30s. Um,
You don't look it.
so I am wiser and I want people to be able to advocate for themselves and for their family members the way I am able to and do for my family members as well and just be knowledgeable about the things that I put in and on my body. Um, and to not kind of lay down and die. I hate to say that, but just like do your best.
Yeah.
That's kind of like I want you to do your best. I want you to feel your best. I want you to feel some type of empowerment and control. Cause I kind of like when I first learned about the BRCA mutation,
Hmm.
I felt like there was nothing I could do about it. And then I was like, wait, I can do something about this. And then after just doing a lot of research and learning about different things and, plant-based diets
Hmm.
and reducing meat intake because I used to eat chicken fingers like they were going out of style. I used to eat chicken fingers like they were going out of style.
No, but feel free to share any little tips that you want to share. I know I mean, that could be a whole nother
It
interview,
could be
of
a whole
course.
nother,
Yeah, but
but
are
yeah,
there any significant tips that you do want to leave people with regarding this? Because I'm very much, I was an athlete. Okay, I was told not to say that because once you're an athlete, you're always athletes, and maybe you've
you
gotten
are an
kind of it.
athlete.
So, but I do. I still work out and I still
Mhm.
lift weights and I love it. And I think sometimes people may be at a particular weight and they're like, I just can't do it. Or they
Yeah.
may, that could be either overweight or underweight and just feel like they can't. But my thing is, I'm very much like, I agree with you. Try to do something every day. If it's nothing but 15 minutes of walking around your house or some of those videos that are on YouTube, but try anyway, try to eat better. So are there a couple of tips that you could leave with people that you really are passionate about far as what you would like to see people do or anything that you think that they need to know?
Yeah, definitely. So processed meat, we know processed meat and red meat, no bueno. Try to reduce it as much as you can. Alcohol, try to reduce as much as you can. But my main tip is to crowd out. That's like my main tip.
Okay.
So I don't want anyone to feel like they're coming from a place of deprivation. I want them to feel like they're coming from a place of abundance. So instead of saying, oh, I need to cut this out, I need to cut that out, I'm going to add something in instead. So if you increase your greens, increase your vegetables, increase your fruits, beautiful. Crowd out the other stuff. If that means doing less of like the red meat and
Mhm.
and having more greens and vegetables on your plate and eat those first, that also helps with digestion. Um, so if you do that first and then you eat the cooked stuff later, that's better. But I do have like a freebie on my website
Okay.
that gives a list of 10 cancer fighting foods and then 3 days of example meal plan. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 3 days. And that's on my website, albaholisticwellness.com. So you can just put your email in and it'll get sent right to you. And you can have it in your pocket and it
I
explains to
love
you
it.
why each one is good for you and good
Right.
for preventing cancer.
So I do have a question for you because you just reminded me of something. So you say processed meats, and I know about the processed meats and stuff like that, as far as it can cause they're carcinogenic.
Yeah.
But so you know how you have like the soy, like the crumble, because a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go plant-based or I'm gonna go vegan or vegetarian, and then they start buying a whole bunch of processed stuff that is made out of not necessarily that soy is bad, because that's supposedly a myth, but my whole point is there are a lot of plant-based foods out there that are packaged and they have high sodium and a lot of high fat and saturated,
Yeah. So
little
plant,
saturated fat. But my
yeah.
whole point is those packages of plant-based foods, what do you consider them? Are they considered healthier? Are they considered, you got to watch those too? What's your thought on that?
Okay. Yeah. So there's a few different things. So plant-based means based off of plants, not
Mhm.
processed. It's from plants, it's minimally processed. It doesn't mean that like
Okay.
those are considered like vegan. And if they use the word plant-based, they're just kind of tricking the consumer maybe.
Okay.
Um, or like plant burgers or something like that. But
Mhm.
plant-based means that it's low processed, it's from plants, it's like what you make in your kitchen.
Okay.
It depends. I can't speak generally of all the items out there, but
Right.
there were studies of like someone eating a Beyond Burger versus a regular burger, and they found that the Beyond Burger was still better for them. Although we
Okay.
shouldn't have processed, it said that it was still better for them. Um, but yeah, if you can avoid processed, it definitely would.
Okay.
But it does show that the processed meat and the real meat is worse for you and it has higher fat and cholesterol and all that than the uh fake meat.
Okay. The fake meat. So I kind of call it the fake meat too. No, but that's good to know, because a lot of times I'm like, oh, that's packaged too. Like, and because
Yeah.
of my own health issues, I look a lot at the sodium content and
Hmm.
cholesterol and things of those natures.
Yeah.
So that's really good to know.
Yeah.
So you did tell us where we could find you far as your website, and I'm also going to post it when I let everyone know that everything is out for them to go watch and listen to on the podcast. But also, where can they find you on Instagram, or if you have Facebook, TikTok, where else can they find you?
I'm at Alba Holistic Wellness on Instagram as well.
Mhm.
Um, and that's the social media that I have right now because I'm just focusing on that
Oh,
right
okay.
because that's enough.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
my website. So
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram and I have my website up. Well, it's partially up. It's in the process of fully getting launched, but I have the freebie on there. You can just sign up and it will get sent to you.
Awesome. And far as what you do with the medical field, is there a way that people can find you if they need? Because you do what again? Because I want to
I'm
make
a
sure.
medical speech pathologist. So we
Speech
do
pathology.
deal a lot with laryngeal cancer,
Okay.
chemo brain. And same thing. You can find me there too. We do
Okay.
deal a lot with chemo brain and the neurotoxicity that results from radiation and chemo.
So that's on your website as well, where they can find you if they need to come to the hospital or the
Well,
hospital where you work.
so I am actually a supervisor for New York City Health and Hospital. So I
Gotcha.
oversee the other speech pathology departments.
Nope, but that's still good to know because now we still know where we can find.
So you can
find
find me floating around in New York City.
Yeah, but we know, okay, if I need a speech pathologist, obviously I need one. We we can go there because you're overseeing, and I would
Mhm.
trust the people that you're overseeing because you
Yes,
must know
yes.
what you're talking about. But yeah, so that's good to know. So do you have anything else you want to share or anything that's coming up, or is that pretty much it far as your story? Because I want to get into your song that you chose. But before we get
Mm.
into that, I want to make for sure that you share whatever you needed to share.
No, thank you so much, Christina. We didn't even get to talk about racing against BRCA, but if everyone,
Oh, go ahead, go
if
ahead.
if you guys want to watch that, it got into the New York City Film Festival. I think that's the film festival we got into, but it was a few years ago. It was right after my mastectomy, and I ran the New York City Marathon 11 months after my mastectomy, and I ran it quite quickly. It was my first marathon ever, and I qualified for Boston. And I wanted to make that
Wow.
because I didn't have at that time. I like there was like not a lot of young people getting mastectomies. It is really sore. It's really kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and when I would look on blogs, I would see all these older women. They were like, "Oh, well, I did step after my mastectomy, but I couldn't really do much more." And I was like, "No, F that. I'm gonna go hard. I want women to know that they can do this after their mastectomy too." So I hope that is like helpful for some people to like have some imagery if they're going to have surgery or if they just had surgery, they can see me running and they can imagine themselves doing it because they can. They totally can.
That's good. And so where can they find that again? I want you to repeat it for them.
It's Racing Against BRCA on YouTube.
Okay.
Racing it, and my husband, my beautiful husband, made that. Like I
Yes,
said,
it
is
is
a that he
really,
made.
really, you're like, he made that, but he's not gonna get
He
credit
doesn't
for my
make any of my
IG.
Instagram.
You may be a filmmaker, sir, but no. That is beautiful. It was really good. Like I watched it and I was like, wow, this is very impactful. And just to hear your whole story and then to see you actually in action and running, that was like, wow, she is
Oh
really,
my gosh.
really did that.
That was pain. That was
Yeah.
pain.
You can see it on your face. Like,
Yeah, I think the part where
yep.
I think we're entering into like the 23rd mile and we're going
Mhm.
uphill and you go uphill. They put the uphill
Mm.
at the end.
Yeah,
Like
I think so.
real nice, real nice. Going up Fifth Avenue, just struggling, but I did it. And
You
and
did.
what I kept thinking during that time, I remember was one step at a time. And that's
Wow.
kind of like what it's applicable to so many people in so many situations. Just
Mhm.
focus on one step at a time.
Wow. And so also with that, because you didn't talk about your coaching far as your race coach, correct?
Yes, I'm also a run coach and, also, and, necessity breeds invention. So didn't know anybody who was running with a mastectomy. And I was like, how am I going to breathe? And it is
Right.
hard to breathe after, especially
That
I'm
scar
under
tissue.
the scar tissue under the muscle. I'm like, what do I have? Paperweights strapped to my chest? That's what it feels like. And so you definitely need someone to understand your situation. I mean, God bless my coach. He is really good. Um, he's an Olympian. He's from New Zealand, so he kind of like helped me along, but he didn't understand what I was going through, and we
Right.
kind of like figured it out on our own. But now I'm coaching women who have had mastectomies who want to get back into running.
You are a busy lady because everything you're doing takes a lot of time. But when you
Thinking
have
about those Instagram posts take the most.
yeah. But you're passionate about it.
I
So,
am.
that's the beauty of it all. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I can't imagine fart because I just walking like at fast pace or jogging a little bit. It's like an iron belt or something across my chest. It's really,
Yeah. People
it,
ask me, what does it feel like? I'm like, it feels like somebody saran wrapped two
yeah,
paperweights and I'm trying to run uphill really fast. And that's what
yeah.
it feels like.
And
It's
sometimes,
really tough.
yeah, and sometimes it's just you're not even running. It just happens.
Why are you
Oh,
breathing so heavy?
yeah.
I don't know.
Feel like I got some metal strapped to my chest. But you're so right about going under the muscle because that's how my expanders were. Because people don't understand, like they cut the muscle away from the bone and they put it under the muscle, and then
The
it's bad.
the first race I raced with post mastectomy, it was like
Mhm.
6 months after. I stopped in the middle of the race. I was like, it's tearing from my chest. I think my chest is gonna burst open. I was like, I think something's gonna rip. That's really what it felt like. But it gets better. I don't want anyone to get afraid. It
Right,
gets
right,
better. You get
definitely,
better. It get better.
right. You just have to rebuild your chest wall too.
You do. And your
Yeah.
diaphragmatic breathing and
Mhm.
working on your diaphragm and not letting it go into spasm. And that's what happens to me a lot. But I work on stretching it.
Yeah, my physical therapist was telling me like it's really difficult because the scar tissue gets woven into the muscle. And so it's really difficult. Like it's one thing to have a layer of scar tissue, but then when it starts weaving itself into the muscle, that's where a lot of our pain and tightness start coming from.
Good times.
Oh my God. But I do like when I lift weight, when I'm lifting a lot of weights and doing push-ups and stuff. It hurts during the process, like you stated. But the more you work at it, the better you feel. And if I take a day off,
Yeah.
the norm, then I am like, oh my God, I feel like this iron bra or belt or whatever is
It's
like
like so
suffocating.
tight.
Yeah, it's bad. But as
So
long as
tight.
you stretch, you're right. It feels a lot better.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot better.
You have to stretch.
Yeah. So with that being said, I guess we can get into the song that you chose for your reel. If you can tell us what the name of it was and why you chose
So what did I have? Shake It Off, right? Because I
it.
picked it a long time ago because we got delayed.
It was Florence,
And the
the
machine.
machine and the machine. Yes.
And it was Shake It Off. Or
Yep.
was it?
Take it off.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
shake it off.
So basically, shake it off. Um, so she says like you have a devil on your back. Um,
Mm.
and you kind of keep going even though it's there. And that's kind of like relevant to my life. I feel like my BRCA mutation is a bit of the devil on my back. And I try my best to shake it off and I keep running and I keep going and I keep trying to empower and help other people, help myself, help my family. So yeah, like I also love that song to work out to. I love Florence and the Machine.
That is awesome. So, what is a word that you can leave with the audience that can help them with whether they have new wounds, whether they have old scars, but it's just very difficult for them mentally and physically? What word and why do you choose that word to help encourage the audience?
So my word is tenacity.
Mm.
And don't ever lose your tenacity. Even if you have a low level tenacity, like there was plenty of times when when I had my second surgery, it was 6 months before our wedding. And I remember feeling really low. And I remember feeling really sad and I do have a lot of tenacity for life and feeling very low in tenacity. And I just kind of imagined myself back to where I was before and trying to get there and trying to bring that back because that wasn't me. But just don't ever give up. And if you are feeling like how am I ever going to get out of this hole, use imagery of yourself or use imagery of other people and at a place where you want to be. And don't ever lose your tenacity for life.
I love it. And I would have to say for you, as I've been listening to you because, we've gone back and forth in messages, but tonight, just seeing your presence and after watching the video and just hearing you speak, I just see nothing but just pure calm. I think of you as a calm presence, but one who has a very powerful voice.
Mm.
And because for you to be so young and go through all of this, yet still advocate the way that you did for yourself. And when you do that, you don't do it, like I stated, for just yourself. You're doing it for your family. You're doing it for your children. You're doing it for the future of them and the future of everyone else. So
Mhm.
I just want you to continue to speak, but also continue to have that calmness that you have, because it's very inviting and it keeps other people calm, even when they may be going through something. And even your videos. Now, your videos, they're not so calm. You're like telling people they're very energetic. And that's a different type of platform for you. But at the same time, it still brings a sense of peace, and it brings a sense of hope, because a lot of your videos are showing people that they can do it. Yet and still, even in the moments, even in your video, your documentary that your husband did, there was a time in there, if I'm not mistaken, where you were crying because you had just had the mastectomy.
Mhm.
And that was a moment, it looked, to some people, it may look like vulnerability, but even in that, you could still see a sense of calm.
Mm.
And a lot of times people need that in their life as they're trying to get to the next level in their life. So
Mm.
thank you so much
No,
for.
thank you so much for that, Christina. It's been lovely. I really
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah, and I loved having you up here. Absolutely. You can come up here anytime.
I would love to.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna have to plan something out, because I'm starting to do more. I'm gonna get into more like IG lives too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
let's do it. I'd love to do
absolutely.
it.
I will definitely get with you. Well, everyone, this is another Our Scars Speak episode. I thank each and every one of you for watching and for being here tonight or watching later on our YouTube channel or our podcast, listening to it. And we always thank our guests because they're so great. And Caroline, thank you so much. And for everyone, I hope and I know that you did receive something from her today, and you can go back and listen to it. But remember that your mental and your physical scars speak a story. When you're supposed to tell a story, we do not know. We're not trying to pressure you. However, if you ever get to the point of sharing, please do so, because those scars that speak, those mental and physical scars that speak, they can help another heal their wounds. So with that being said, we love you all. We will see you again next week, and bye.
Thank you.
Welcome.